And there you go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 7th Annual Filipino Hollywood Actors Panel, presented by the Filipino American Chamber of Commerce of Hollywood, or FACCHO, F-A-C-C-H-O. We're celebrating our 5th anniversary, and we're celebrating it online, which is interesting. If you don't know anything about this panel, we've done it for the last 5 years, since 2015. It is a panel discussion and networking event, featuring our special guest panelists, who represents the craft of acting across the board while shining a spotlight on Filipino talent in not just Hollywood, but all over the world. Here you can ask questions if you have any questions. We'll have you ask questions on the second hour of this Zoom event, and you can write your questions on the Q&A chat below the screen. Our panelists will be talking about acting, their reflections on their personal experiences and influences that informed and shaped their careers, their discussions, past and current projects, and share valuable insight into the craft and the industry, the business part of it as well. So I will now introduce our panelists. First off, she is a creator, writer, and series lead for the City OMNI television original series, Second Gen. She is a 2-time nominee for the Writers Guild of Canada Screenwriting Awards, co-nomination in 2016 with her partner, writer, actress, producer, Samantha Wynn, and a nomination in 2019 for Second Gen. She is also a Canadian Screen Award nominee for the series as well. Please, everyone, welcome, if you can do the virtual clap, Amanda Joy. Or just wave. Okay. Our next guest is ALAIN UY. Got that right? He's Chinese Filipino American actor, born in Dagupan City, Philippines. My Filipino is really bad. And moved to Los Angeles at the age of 6. He has 4 siblings. At age 11, he earned a second-degree black belt in Taekwondo and was nationally ranked in 1990 in the ATA international standings. Early in his career, ALAIN was also an accomplished dancer and musician, featured in several music videos with Jennifer Lopez, Jadakiss, and Anastasia. During his study abroad program at Oxford University, he developed a love for theater and acting, and that became his primary focus. His acting career began modestly, booking guest starring roles in The OC, Monk, ER, and Parenthood, just to name a few. Eventually, he started booking recurring guest star roles on several notable TV shows such as HBO's True Detective, Fox's The Passage, and Grimm. More recently, ALAIN is set to recur, actually not set, he's recurring alongside Jennifer Aniston, Reese Witherspoon, and Steve Carell on Apple Plus's Emmy Award-winning television series, The Morning Show, which I think is coming back for a second season, I believe. Coming up, he will be starring as a series regular on Hulu's exciting new show, Marvel's Helstrom, and he also has a lead role on Bao Tran's upcoming feature film, The Paper Tigers, starring alongside Ron Yuan of Disney's Mulan, and Jae-Soo Park's Netflix friends from college. Please, everyone, welcome ALAIN UY.
Hello. So virtual clap. There you go. Who wrote that? Who wrote that? That's a little crazy. Thanks for having me here, guys.
And lastly, we have a legend. She made her feature film debut in the leading role, The Karate Kid Part 2, and later was in both leading and supporting roles in the films Come See the Paradise, The Joy Luck Club, Picture Bride, 4 Rooms, Robot Stories, and The Day After Tomorrow, just to name a few. She also has played several recurring roles on television, including 24, Glee, Teen Wolf, How to Get Away with Murder, and as Commodore O on the CBS All Access streaming series Star Trek Picard. She starred on television series such as this this is not from your bio, Tamlyn. I added it in because it was one of my favorite shows. UPN's paranormal series, The Burning Zone, the Epix drama series, Burning Station, and the ABC medical drama, The Good Doctor. So much to say about her, but I had to condense her biography in 2 paragraphs. Everyone, please welcome Tamlyn Tomita.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm going to start off with 3 general questions, and then the other questions will be specific to 1 or 2 of you, or even 3 of you. So, and feel free to, just, it's a casual atmosphere. Just feel free to talk whatever you want. First question, any question to any actor, how did you get started?
Who wants to take it first? Huh? I think Amanda should start since she was introduced first.
Yeah.
I started off actually doing catalog modeling and commercial work when I was about 3 years old. It was something, and my sister was a couple years older than I was, and it was something for us to do as a family and to earn a little bit of extra money.
Right.
So,
This is in Canada, and this is in Canada.
yeah, so I'm in Canada. So we're like the only 2 Asian kid models.
Wow.
But yeah, so that's how I got started, and that became commercials.
Yeah.
And then doing, school plays, and then going from those to more professional productions in TV and film. But yeah, it's sort of just always been my life.
That's cool.
And then how did you transition into acting and writing?
The writing was sort of snuck up on me. In terms of acting, it sort of just naturally happened because I started doing commercials. And then
Right.
from commercials, they want you to start, why don't you try doing a little bit of television and film? But in terms of writing, I always wrote in my spare time, but never thought of myself as a writer. Then I started doing, sometimes on set, I would do some improv on some of the comedy sets. It worked out that one of the producers really liked my improv and invited me to be a contributing writer on something. And
Wow.
then at the same time, I wrote a short that I shot with a friend, and we that she produced, and we shopped it around at festivals, and that's how we eventually got to have our own sitcom, because they liked the idea of the show that we put into our short film and picked it up for television.
Wow. Wow, that's wonderful. Congratulations. Now I'm going to have to look it up right now. And Yuji says, ALAIN is so awesome. Love ya. So everybody, Yuji Okamoto produced a film that ALAIN is in, and ALAIN just told me that Yuji says hello, and I texted Yuji. And
There you go.
so yeah.
Yuji.
Oh, wow.
Yuji.
Yeah, congratulations. Now I'm going to have to look up where I can watch Second Gen, because
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time in Vancouver, and of course I watch the explosion of Kim's Convenience. So to watch, fellow Asian North Americans,
Yeah.
achieve, their levels of success as they, advance in their careers, has always been just like, it's just been so awesome. And I'm really looking forward to, I'm seriously looking at it right now where I can watch Second Gen.
Yeah, where can we watch that? Because I would love to support as well.
So first, I would say I would suggest starting on the 2nd season.
Uh-huh.
That's when we really actually were allowed to have a lot more say in what
Uh-huh.
because when in this industry, it's so there is an old guard.
Sure.
There's people
Yeah.
that are trusted, and so you might have an opinion that maybe doesn't get taken to the screen. So I would say that probably season 2
Okay.
is much more representative of our voice as creators.
Is it CTV?
It's OMNI and City TV.
Oh, City TV. Okay.
So in
Got it.
Canada, you can watch it at omnitv.ca.
Okay.
I'm not totally sure where you can get it in the US, but
Yeah.
I know I've been watching it in the US because I get messages from people. So
Really? Oh, okay.
you
Okay.
can find it somewhere.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So now we have something absolutely interesting to watch and to search for. So yeah.
And our 3rd season is coming out. It was supposed to be this fall, but of course COVID
Of course.
Now we don't know because we stopped halfway through production. But that should be coming out soon too. And I'm really excited because season 3 has an episode where my character's family comes from the Philippines, and we have it was supposed to be a Filipino barbecue, but it was quite cold, so it ended up being a Filipino house party.
Hey man, you gotta make it work. So
Yeah.
that's good. Yeah.
Adaptability. Cool.
That's exactly right.
Up and down. So.
Yay.
What a great story, man.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
ALAIN, I think it's your turn.
Anyone else?
Is it? Okay. Buckle up. This is a fun story. No, it's actually quite boring. The question is, where did we get our start, right? Or what is the genesis, right? Is that the question? As you said during the intro, I started off as a dancer. In fact, I did martial arts first, and then I did dancing, because I just fell in love with movement. Anything with movement, anything with music, anything that would allow me to express myself. Because contrary to what you guys might think, I'm pretty introverted. It takes a lot for me to kind of do this kind of stuff. So I found movement and even mask work to be amazing, and I really just wanted to be a dancer, until I got into a really bad car accident in my senior year, fractured both of my hips, and I couldn't walk for 6 months, and that in some ways kind of derailed everything for me, just mentally. I wasn't anticipating that kind of speed bump, for lack of a better word. And then I just remember being in this sort of, looking back on it now, I think I was in, I was depressed. There was a depression there that hit, because I just didn't know what I was going to do. So I went to community college and did a study abroad program at Oxford. And then from Oxford, I would visit my cousins in London, and I would go watch plays. And I just remember watching this play with Anthony Hopkins and Liam Neeson, and it was an Oscar Wilde play. And I just remember watching it going, what the hell am I watching? This is nuts. I couldn't wrap my mind around it. You know, in high school, you do musicals, you do all these sort of plays, but I've never seen a professional theater play like this that had no music, no dancing. It was a two-man play. And I just couldn't, I thought it was real. I thought it was the emotions, everything was going on was great. So I think that's where, not even I think, I know that's when everything sort of made a turn for me. And that's when I said, you know what, that's whatever that is. And I mentioned mask work earlier about like being able to show movement and being able to express yourself emotionally through movement, and to see that in that space just kind of blew me away. And I remember just coming back from that study abroad program and just calling all of my friends that were actors, that were child actors, that I asked them everything. I said, how do I do this? This is what I want to do. And so that's in some ways my origin story, and getting guidance from my friends to figure out what to do next. But yeah, that's where I started from. There you go.
The spark.
Enjoy it.
The spark. Yeah. The electricity. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think, I think we could all relate to that, right? Like Amanda, I'm sure there was a moment for you where you're like, this is it. Like it just probably flowed for you when you're writing, and even when you're acting, you're like, okay, there's something here that makes you feel alive. It makes you feel like you have a purpose. And I would imagine that's how you got started too, Tamlyn, where there's that spark you mentioned, right?
Thank you for the segue. Thank you very much. That was very smooth. Absolutely, because it is the power of the story. You're watching a story in front of you, whether or not it's on a Zoom now, or if it's on TV or film or on a stage play. And it's the story, how it impacts you, how it changes you, how it transforms you to think a different way, to see things a different way, to feel things a different way. and to see others in those different ways. You know, it changes your perspectives, or it widens your perspective. Actually, that's a better term. And long story short, here in LA, I was a participant in the oldest ethnic festival in the United States, the Nisei Week Japanese Festival. And that year, in 84, I participated in the festival. I was crowned queen, so I had to go around and represent the Japanese American Southern California community to events in various capacities. And coincidentally, at that year, the year after 85, was the call for the Karate Kid Part 2. It's the casting call. So Caro Jones, the casting director for that film, called the Nisei Week Japanese Festival, and another former queen, Helen Funai, had assembled a large number of participants from the festival, including me, to go in an audition. I was on break at UCLA studying history. And I said, hey, why not? This will be fun. This will be, this will be an adventure. I get to go to, an audition. And I did. And a coincidence that the story took place in Okinawa. My mother's father's side is from Okinawa. And so I had that connection to the story. I had jumped through the hoops, and I landed the part of Karate Kid. And that's where I first met Yuji Okamoto and Ralph Macchio and Pat Morita and Nobu McCarthy and Danny Kamakona and Joey Miyashima and all those guys who I love and adore and who are my first mentors. And I still look up to them for everything that I do. They taught me everything. They taught me to stand in front of the light, look at the mark, remember my lines, just it's just basics, the ABCs. They were literally taking me by the hand and say, okay, you're going to stand here, when I say this line, but you got to walk backwards because you have to land here when it's literally, I knew nothing. They all took a chance on me. So that's that story. So that's a whole other, thing. But and I thought, okay, that's it. And I was going back to school, and people, my agent was sending me for auditions, and I go, what? They go, they don't just give me
Wait a minute.
I know. Wait.
They don't just give it to you?
I know. What? What's going on here? So, and I learned the whole process of auditioning, and that was like, what? And when you feel when I had the experience after the film came out in 86, I think it was 86, right? Was it 86? Yeah, 86. I realized how impactful that story was. It's especially for us Asian Americans, and specifically here, I'll go into in just a minute, about being Filipino Americans, is we get to see us finally. We get to see us. We are in America, the greatest story, they call it the movie entertainment, or the entertainment capital of the world, LA, or but our stories do, disseminate around the world, and they impact people because they're watching stories on screen that touch them, that they're familiar with, the stars of the silver screen. And ALAIN is named after Alain Delon, a very, very, very famous French actor, iconic. But people don't know him now because those films aren't watched anymore. It's the power of storytelling. So when I was going to UCLA, I was studying history in order to learn about our past, so I can become a teacher to teach history. Storytelling and acting in film and television stage is a part, is telling history, histories. It's how we tell our past. It's how we tell our aspirations for the future. It's how we tell each other what we want to know about each other. We're in such a flux of information and inspiration and dedication to seeing, more faces like you four here on the screen. So that's why I give credit to Amanda here for having, the gumption, to write her own stuff. It's like, that's the number one thing. It's like you're the goddess here. You're the creator. You're the generator.
Only so many times you can go out for foreign exchange student before you just
girl. Oh my God.
Can't do this.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's a recurring theme for I think a lot of us, right? Is going out for those moments where you're like, I don't know about this character, man.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Though is that now that we have these networks of like not just Asian but like BIPOC and other groups coming together, that when you get that feeling and I keep getting all these auditions for foreign exchange students and scientists and is it just me? And then you compare it with everyone else and you go, okay, I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
We've done such a good job, and like I think people coming up before me as well have done such a good job of strengthening the community. And when the community is strong, these little fights that we have, even with ourselves, saying maybe it's just in my head, they become so much easier when we're supported by a community and by the voice of a community that assures us that our feelings are valid and that our observations are valid.
Very
So
you're so on point. It's absolutely, and it just what one lesson that I can impart is that it will change, but it will always remain the same. If you understand what I mean, because to recognize that there are foreign exchange students who do come to our countries and have these wonderful experiences are heartrending. They're warm. They're just like, it shows us who we are. But then I call them out in saying, yes, I'll go in for the foreign exchange student because I will honor those foreign exchange students, but you have to honor me. So when do I, it's like either I am going to come in for those roles that reflect who I am, even though I look like this, or I will start, creating and writing things and pieces like you are doing right now.
Well, I think you just
POV. Like, is it the POV? Is the foreign exchange student serving a white narrative and how they see?
Yes,
I think that's it. I think that's it.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. I think it's really finding the truth in these characters. Is that are they speaking truth? Are they like you said, man? Like, are they integral to the story, or is it just an adjective for something that's just two-dimensional? I think that's the biggest thing that I think I've encountered personally as well, is that in the past, you for example, the Paper Tigers breakdown, that's one of the things that and for the folks who don't know what Paper Tigers is, it's an independent movie that we filmed last year that I was blessed enough to be a part of. But they've been working on this for quite some time. But when my manager first approached me about it, she mentioned that it was a movie. It's a kung fu movie with Asian leads. And for me, it's wonderful, but it's a double-edged sword. Are they speaking truth, or is it more of a is it not well-rounded enough? I mean, these are things that we all look for as storytellers, like you said, Tamlyn, in terms of how many dimensions, how full are these characters? And there is that strange double-edged sword, like I mentioned. If I take this role, is it going to perpetuate some kind of weird stereotype? And is that stereotype even bad? It's a huge conversation that you go through. Fortunately enough, Bao Tran, who wrote and directed this thing, really flushed out these characters. So it's a testament to all the content creators, the creatives, the writers out there that really tell these stories, but it's coming from a perspective, a point of view, like you said, Amanda, a POV of truth and where it's coming from. So I agree. A quick follow-up. you said history, UCLA.
Mhm.
What is you mentioned that because I was a history major.
Mhm.
Are we all history
Yeah,
majors?
look
Oh,
at this.
really?
Look at this. Boom. Edwin, are you a history major too?
No.
No. Okay.
Oh, wow.
This is great. So what did you guys study? What was your
What did you study? What did you study?
I studied two things. I studied Asian American studies and then East African studies. So those are the two subjects I delved into. So now I'm curious because I applied to go to UCLA's doctorate program. I think I don't know if I got in or not, but I sat down with the dean at CSUN, and he sat me down. And he's like, "What are you going to do with this degree?"
Wait, you
And
went to CSUN?
I did. I went to CSUN. Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
What's going on here? You went to CSUN too? Edwin,
you went to CSUN?
Yeah, I did.
Go to CSUN too?
Oh my god. Okay. Cal State Northridge for everybody, for those.
Okay, yeah, Cal State Northridge, right.
Okay.
Did you went there too? You went to
No, my mom lives in North, so we live, and Karate Kid 2 was filmed at Cal State Northridge. Yeah. Cal State Northridge. My brothers went to Cal State Northridge. So
there you go.
Yeah.
No, just to finish up the story, the dean asked me, and he was a person of color. He looked at me and he's like, "What are you going to do with your degree at UCLA if you get in?" I was like, I'm going to teach.
Yeah.
And he said, "Okay, so you're going to teach what?" And I said, "History."
Yeah.
And he did the math in his head. He's like, you're 22. You're going to finish. You're going to get published. You're going to be done by 27. And he said, "What, if anything, can you teach at 27? You have yet to live your life." He said, history and teaching is not just academics. You're teaching also life skills.
Right.
And so what have you lived? What life have you lived since? He's like, "Do you have any other passions?" And I said, "I'm trying to do this acting thing." He's like, "Well, you got to do it 100% because school is always going to be here. School is always going to be here." And, coming from, an Asian family, I think we could all relate to this, is to sort of get that support from somebody to say, follow your dreams. And I know this is sort of a tangent, but because I asked about UCLA, but yeah, I think getting that support, and I think it all ties into what you're saying, Amanda, about the community and about creating that foundation for our community to say, "Hey, we've got your back. We'll keep pushing you forward." Mm-hmm. To gain that support. So I don't know if that all ties in, but no. Hopefully it does.
Really quick, I was studying both Japanese history and British history, as they were both small island countries that brought into empires.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was like, what is this island mentality? And it just got too complicated for me, but I still do love, I'm right now, I just opened the book, Kate Schatz's Rad American History A to Z. So it's pretty awesome. Yeah, pretty awesome. What about you, Amanda?
So I went to a smaller, in terms of the history program, it was a smaller university. So I did early modern England. And then, so like the Tudor period, Henry VIII, because I just love Shakespeare. So
yeah.
And other than that, we looked at like early 20th century media. So looking at a lot of like propaganda, the emergence of advertising, and studying, interestingly, because we're in Canada, studying things like the American Dream and how that was reinforced. Yeah, so it was a bit of like more like media history on that second portion, which is really interesting.
Yeah, cool. So we're all, history, storytelling.
I think that's why, because history is just stories.
Absolutely.
A lot of people's stories.
Yeah, but
and it's perspective too.
Exactly.
Whose perspective if it's being told, right? So, yeah. I think Edwin had to say something. What were you going to say, Edwin?
That's okay.
Edwin kept doing this. He was like, I gotta.
So I'm going to a lot of the stuff she said, I'm already answered the questions I had. But I'm gonna go straight to this one. Despite the hardest parts of your career that occurs, what keeps you motivated as an actor to keep on going?
Amanda said it already. It's the support of the community.
That's one.
Is the support of the fans. It's the support of your fellow artists and storytellers, because we know we're all in this together, and we're just constantly bouncing off ideas, especially, you know, gods and goddesses like her. It's like to be able to say, let's do this. It's like, okay, let's do this. It's there's never a sense of failure. It's just a sense of knowing what's next.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So, oh, go ahead.
There's something about knowing that just by being in media and being in such kind of mass media, that you're able to affect change in a way disproportionately to what you might be able to do alone. Like, I know going in, doing our show, I really wanted to have a Filipino family on TV because I'd never seen one. And it took a couple seasons, but we got that episode. And so being able to say, I want this to happen, I want people to see this, I want them to see us as normal, which is like, you know, shouldn't be that far-fetched a thing, but I haven't seen a Filipino family on TV yet. Putting it out there and being able to do something that you love, but also affect change and affect people's perceptions, that it's addictive, and sometimes it's frustrating, but it's ultimately really fulfilling.
I've got nothing to add. You guys nailed everything. That was great. I'll probably ruin it by adding something. So
No. I'm just so thrilled and proud that you're being able. It's because of the success of Kim's Convenience. You know, right smack in the middle of the success of Fresh Off the Boat and the former Dr. Ken Jeong's, you know, comedy series on television. You know, you're right in there. You're right in there, and to make it specifically a Filipino family, you know, all accolades to you. I bow down, man. I bow.
Yeah.
It's really great. And you know, as consumers of this media, it's important to realize that we have the power of these to be able to tweet or to Insta or to, you know, Facebook campaigns or whatever, to call for more representation, because I think people are starting to listen. Their ears are de-waxed, or something like that, because they finally realize there is the time of reckoning, right? And the call for my time on The Good Doctor has always been. I come in every year and we are a hospital, you know, the fictional hospital in San Jose, California. The largest Filipino population in the States. Is like, where are the Filipino nurses? Or where are the South Asian doctors? You know, because, you know,
watching all these hospital dramas, I'm like, where are all the Filipinos?
Over the years, right?
Go to the hospital.
So
it's like a common conversation. Yeah, it's a conversation
let's put that
piece
out there. So you know, for all the viewers out there, you know, it's that you have power too. It's like, excuse me, where the fuck are all the Filipinos? You know, it's like
I'm working on it.
Sorry.
Starting this fall,
I'm sorry,
Amanda Joy.
I just dropped an F-bomb, but you know, it's so discouraging sometimes. You know, it's like, it's so discouraging sometimes. And
left out a lot of the, like, when people are like representation, and then even when they talk about Asians, oftentimes they're talking about East Asians and Filipinos. We get left out.
Yeah, it's like Filipinos are Asians, and they go, yeah, hello, and it's so that's it. Change is slow, but we must keep fighting on. Progress is slow. So there we go.
But I think it's sorry to quickly add this to this thing, is that, you know, people like Amanda, you know, there's a few other writers too, like Michael Galamko and then Dennis Aldua. You know, these guys and ladies, they're pushing that and to create that exchange of ideas. I mean, a great example of this is that you know, I did the show The Passage, and Liz Heldens, who is the showrunner for that, we connected really well on a personal level. And she's just created this pilot called The Big Leap. and the main character, who's a dancer, is Filipino. And she sat me on, she, you know, took me to lunch, and she started to, you know, ask me questions about the community and what that's like. And she's partnered up with Dennis Del Duo, who's Filipino. And that, having writers like Amanda, like I said, and having them in the writer's room allows you to diversify those stories. And I think that's what's really important, is that the more we diversify every creative aspect of this industry, will certainly open up a bigger, you know, a wider net of stories and perspectives. And I think that's what's important. I think, yeah, that's all I got. I yield my time.
Working on and definitely seeing the difference as trust is built with, you know, with networks and with producers. When you're first starting out and you're you're one of only a couple creatives of color, and everyone else, all of the decision makers around you are not people of color. A lot of things become battles that wouldn't be battles if they were, and not from any ill intent or negativity, but just because your worldview is so different that your stories require more explanation. They require more, and so
foundation building is like,
you need to have more to, and one thing I'll say is too, is like when we watch TV shows, even if they are diverse in front of the camera, like I feel like it's our responsibility to also look at who are their writers, who are their producers, and see if that diversity goes all the way up, because it does reflect the way that the stories are told and the way that people of color are represented on the screen. Absolutely,
absolutely. And I do believe what you just said earlier, that it does take a trust, and trust takes time. And I believe that is a reason for the slowness, you know, for the length of time it takes to incorporate change in those writers' rooms or the producers and directors' rooms. But I have seen, because I'm the oldest here, that it does take time. But we're in such a special time right now that and focus is in on those creative rooms, and this is a time to take action, to be proud of the stories that we hold inside, and just to put them out there. So yes, let's just keep on going forward.
So let's see. So what has been the feedback from Filipino Asian viewers of your prominence playing Filipino or Asian characters on television or film or whatever? What have you?
I think for me, if you know, we were when I did that episode of Grimm, and it highlighted a folkloric a monster called Aswang in the Filipino culture. What was really interesting to me is that not only the Filipino Americans here stateside, but also in the Philippines, and how impactful that was to see our stories in a setting in which they're not used to seeing. And I think that, you know, I've got tons of cousins in the Philippines that messaged me and said, we are all watching this episode of Grimm. And to get that kind of feedback, and to get, you know, to see them, and I say them meaning we, really, seeing representation like that, and not in just in some sort of weird off storyline kind of thing, really empowers you, I think. You know, there's many instances where I've been booked as someone who is Mexican. Like, I played a character in the OC. The character's name was Miguel. Like, okay, I'm gonna be, you know, Mexican for today. But to have something really specific like that, I think for me, the response has been positive, but also there's a huge responsibility there to be able to tell the truth, and to be able to show what that is, and not, especially now too. If this was like maybe 20 years ago, there wouldn't be that kind of trust between actor and writer and producer. They would go, I don't know if that's how we would see it, but no, but that's not the truth. The truth is this. So to have a Michael Galamko on that show, to Reggie Lee was on that show.
Yay.
And Tess Paris was on that show. We were all collectively saying this is truth. And I think that's what resonated towards a lot of the people who watched it and said, this is fantastic. Now I had a bit of an accent. I could have worked on it a little bit better, but at the end of the day, you know, the story is there, and it, you know, it was told beautifully. So I think a lot of those moments really, it's a pleasure to take on those roles, and I mean that with sincerity, is that it truly is a pleasure, because it's not often that you get a character that is specifically your culture and is specifically told in a way that you go, okay, I'm in. I'm 100% in on this. And so, yeah, I think at least for me, that's how I relate. And going back to the whole casting process thing, and how Amanda mentioned that, you know, in some ways Filipinos are marginalized in a lot of these casting processes, is that I've been in many audition rooms where they'll look at me just optically and say, you don't look Asian. And I never really understood what that meant. Of course, it could be one of those things where you go, oh, I don't look Asian enough. But there is a specific type of Asian that they have in their minds that I don't quite fit. And whatever that might be, I don't know facially what it could be, or whatever energy I'm putting out there. But I've heard that many times before, where they say, no, we're not quite the Asian that we're looking for. But I think in this time now where specificity really matters, to be able to have somebody who can represent that character, to embody that character all the way through, I think that speaks volumes to the progress that we've been having recently. So yeah, representation's big, man. Yeah, the support that I've gotten from a lot of the people who've seen that episode and has been fantastic, and it's been great.
Just jumping back on what you said, Elaine, I think one way that we are marginalized, when you're talking about the way that casting is done, and are we Asian or are we not Asian, I've noticed that when it comes to casting Asians, they'll specify, and they'll be like, must be Chinese, must be Korean, must be however. And I think in some stories that's really necessary. And so I don't know where I stand on this, because I don't want to say like we're all the same, but at the same time, white actors are never asked, you have to be French, you have to be German, you have to be Italian. And our parts are so limited.
Anyway.
When we're then limiting it more. And then also when we look at how, even if we break down the kinds of Asian parts, or how many Asian parts come out, how many of those Asian parts are for Southeast Asians? And so if they're always specifying must be Korean, must be Japanese, must be Chinese, we're never going to work.
Right.
Because we just don't, for whatever reason, aren't as many roles for Filipinos. I was talking to my friend who's a performer that's Vietnamese, and he was having a hard time with that as well, because he's like, I feel like the only thing I go out for now is like Vietnam War movies.
Right.
Playing like Viet Cong, and that he's been kind of pushed into that in the pursuit of specificity.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you in that regard. I was really just mentioning how it was, 20 years ago, where it didn't even say Chinese, it didn't say specifically Korean American, it just said Asian. And whatever that Asianness is, like you said, there is a huge diaspora of Asian ethnicities. So it's, I think it's always been interesting to me. And then you're right, it could swing all the way the other way too, where it's so specific that you become, in some ways, even more marginalized. Like, okay, it's really specific now. We're looking for someone from the Gupan city who could speak this specific language, and then that's it. And if you don't fit that, you can't get in. So I agree. I 1000% agree. I think there was a huge discussion about, maybe, I don't know if it's how huge it was, but like Crazy Rich Asians, where the casting notices were saying you have to be specifically Chinese. And I think there was some kind of backlash when Henry Golding got casted, because they're like, wait a minute, this guy's not full. So how did that work? How did that whole casting thing go? So I don't know what the politics was behind that, but certainly as at face value, it made you go, okay, that's interesting.
Right.
That's something that we could definitely discuss and have discourse about and figure out how do we move forward? So anyway.
In all of that discussion, I think that like also relating to that, there were a lot of conversations brought up about shadeism. Well, like when they're talking about the success of Asian movies and Asian representation. Are we representing all shades of Asians when we say that we have more representation?
Oh my God, yeah, that just brings back a lot of memories. But it's certainly something that is prevalent, at least in the Filipino cinema. That's how it is, and that if you're a lot of the actors that you see in cinema and TV back in the Philippines are very light. There was a project that I was on that they were like, you might be too dark for this. I don't know. Like, yeah. So I've certainly experienced that too. Yeah.
Colonization, man. It takes a long time, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Conditioning. That's what it is. Conditioning, programming. Yeah. Anyway.
How much have your culture, being Asian American or Filipino, has encouraged you to pursue the arts? Like, it's a common question, right? It's like when you tell your parents, "I'm going to pursue the arts." I mean, has any one of you have gotten support from your family that this is I would rather have you do what you want to do rather than I to tell you otherwise? Or has it been different? Like has there been pushback or anything that whatever?
That's a good question. I think this is speaking for me. My family has always been supportive in many ways. It's not been the typical Asian structure family with regards to the perspective into the arts. They've always been supportive in terms of whatever I wanted to do. Maybe not as vocal at times, and maybe not as soft and loving, but my mom would always tell me, and really tell all my brothers and my sister, that she would always say, just go out there and fail. As a kid, she would say that, just go out there and fail. And I remember in my 20s, I got older, I go, why would you say that to me? Like, that's a strange thing to say to a kid, go fail. But what she said to me was, because it tells me that you're trying. Because when you fail, it means you failed at something that you're trying to do. And it's to teach you that when you fail, you're going to be fine. You didn't break any bones. Maybe your ego got bruised. But at the end of the day, the more you fail, the more you realize that failure is not, it should not be something that would stop you. So in some ways, that's what I sort of embodied in the industry and what we do as artists, because it is filled with challenges and obstacles. It's a giant ultimate ninja course, ultimate warrior ninja thing, where you're like constantly trying to hold on to something. But yeah, at least for me, everyone was very supportive. And I do this specifically because there is a need, there's a desire that's inside me that needs to be satiated in some way to create. I don't know for whatever reason, but that's there. I don't know if it relates to you guys too, but it's there. I was born with it. I don't know. It's there.
Anyone
I feel
else?
like the arts are like a really big part of Filipino culture. Like,
Yeah.
with these,
I think that's what it is too. Yeah, I think, yeah. It's almost like, I remember watching Joe Coy's special just recently where he was like saying, I learned how to, dance like Michael Jackson, and all, my mom was like, come here, show you can do Michael Jackson thing. It's performance, right? So, yeah.
went back home for a reunion, and it was like they brought out the tent and they brought out the karaoke machine or the video machine with the full like TV, and all the kids lined up waiting for their turn.
Waiting for their
all the numbers. Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Like, it's such a part of our tradition, singing and dancing.
Yeah.
Sure.
Learning and storytelling.
It's almost obligatory that you have to sing and dance. Yeah. I never knew why, because obviously I would hope people know that I'm Okinawan, Japanese, and Filipino. My mother is half. So, but you know, she doesn't even realize how much of her mother's side has, you know, really colored her life, and in such a wonderful, distinct, and really unique way. Because there's always the joke in my family that we have this special pigeon, because they would my aunties would always speak Okinawan, Japanese, English, and Filipino. So the dialect, the pigeon, would be just so mixed up. So I thought there's bunches of stories that I could tell about the misunderstanding of, I thought that was Japanese. No, that's Filipino. That's Tagalog. I mean, what shoyu is, or shoyu is Japanese. Patis is Filipino, and I go, but it's in the same bottle. One's dark, one's light, and it's like so growing up like that. But the idea of growing in my family, I'm sorry, I'm running off like that, but in my father's family, the Japanese American side, we would always gather together, and my mom was here alone. My dad was a U.S. soldier, fell in love with her when she was a USO singer in Okinawa, Japan.
Wow.
And she was singing, "Oh, Danny boy." And my dad would, "Oh my God, she's Filipino." They married and fell in love, and brought me here when I was less than 6 months old. And so she grew up here, not knowing any of the American cultures, right? Halloween, Christmas trees, or anything. But I would remember whenever we go to Bao Tran's house, or our grandmother's house, that she made us 3 kids sing. None of my other cousins sing. And I go,
oh.
I have to ask her why she made us sing. And I think it's because it's part of our Filipino culture. It's like, everybody sings. So I have to really ask her. I'll ask her the next time I see her as to why. And it's because of it's the joyfulness, it's the gratefulness of being able to express yourself through song, through dance. Shout out to all the Filipino dancers like ALAIN and, Culture Shock and Arnel. I love my Filipino dancers. It's ABDC, they're all the Filipinos. So
hey, let me ask you something. So ethnically, you're mixed in that regard. Do you? Because I'm half Chinese, half Filipino.
Right.
I grew up born in the Philippines, moved here when I was 6, raised in basically typically Filipino culture. I've been asked this several times in my past, is which culture do you identify with more? Or is that even a fair question to ask?
How I identify more. That's actually because it's constantly shifting. If I look at myself through the ages, I think I was super Japanese when I was in my high school years. And then I discovered the love and beauty of Okinawa at UCLA. My mother, because my mother grew up in World War II, oh my God, long story short, my mother's father was Okinawan. He went from Okinawa to the Philippines, met and married my beautiful Lola, Benjamina, and had a successful barbershop in the Philippines, and they had 4 daughters. War breaks out. It's, we're talking, about, war stories in Europe and the, Bataan and, all the other World War story, Battle of Okinawa. And my mother being, she's born in 36. running around at 5 years old in the jungles of. She was born in Manila, and they had to, you know, escape all the Japanese horrors,
Right.
but and you know, find the Americans and my. Oh yeah, I'm just going because I'm getting anyway. So the idea of identifying as Filipino and Japanese has always shifted. And so my mother didn't get a chance to identify or learn about Okinawan culture because she grew up in the Philippines, and it was after the war that she became, but this is after the war, and they're trying to rebuild Okinawa after the devastation that was wrought upon them from the Americans and the Japanese. So when I went to UCLA, I went and discovered Okinawan classes and Okinawan dance and I brought my mom, and she goes, what am I learning this for? And I go, it's Okinawa. And she goes, oh, and then she learned it. So she opened up. And then I think later on in my 30s and 40s, I became more interested in what it meant to be Filipino, because this was the time where I was trying to find out more about whatever I could find out about my my Lola's family, because there's nothing there, you know, there's no historical documents, there's no, you know, she's from Ilocos, so there's, you know, so much more that I need to know. But, you know, in being able to hear the stories and be shared with the stories from other film actors and actresses about their families, it's like, oh, that's why my mom does this, or that's why my auntie does this, or that's why, you know, my Nobita side, my auntie's side does this. It's that kind of identification. It's constantly evolving and growing. So it's always shifting.
That's great, man. That's great. Because I feel the same way. I feel there's a interweaving there.
Yeah.
Where at some points in your life you go, I'm more Chinese, and there's more points in my life where I go, I'm actually identifying this way.
Yeah. And
that's interesting for me, at least, to discuss that kind of experience with someone like you.
I'll one thing, and with my mom herself being half, you know, she's, you know, because Japanese women are more docile and more quiet, and I go, you're so not Japanese. That's got to be the Filipino side. Like, And then I get the, you know, I get the advantage or the tool. Sorry, I get the tool. It goes, I'm American. That's why I'm noisy. You know, I'd never say, you know, Filipinos are noisy, but I would say that, Mom, you're not just Japanese. You're Filipino. You've got there. That's where the fire and the spunk and the fight comes from. So.
Right.
Okay, so we are at the second hour, and I've ran out of questions.
Oh wow!
Good job, guys. We're halfway through.
Covered it all completely. So I'm like, I'm not gonna ask that question again. So I'm gonna go to some of the Q&As here. Just want to warn you that some of them are kind of heavy, but okay. So this is from Ted Benito. Hi, Tamlyn. Great to see you.
Hi, Ted.
Great to see you on the Joy Luck Club reunion, which was about a couple days ago. What is your reaction to the possible JLC sequel, as Amy, the author, mentioned? Would you?
It's always, well, you know, over the years, we've heard stories about the possibilities of a sequel, and we're always excited, we're always hopeful, and we'll just hope, you know, we'll hope for the best that it will come true. But it's, you know, it's a story that is beloved by a lot of folk, and I just wish it all the best. I don't have any ideas.
This may have been answered before, but I'm just going to repeat the question. I'm not repeating. I'm just going to recite his question. This is from Joe Bagtas. Oh, pronouncing the names. My question is, do you ever write your own content, Amanda, or screenplays to get produced? I keep hearing, as Filipino actors, the best thing to do if you haven't made it is to write your own content. However, even Hollywood greats write their own content to eventually get the roles they want to play. Your thoughts, or any new thoughts from that?
I mean, yes. I mean, you have to take control of every, aspect of your career in everything. I think to leave it in the hands of anybody really is, in some ways, a death warrant, because they don't know your experience, they don't know your voice, they don't know what stories that you feel that needs to be told. And I think, I am trying my best to write my own content and to write my own stories. It's very difficult. I have a lot of respect for writers that do this, on a daily basis, because it's freaking torture. At least for me, it's torturous, because I'm just like, there's so much. But yeah, to answer that question, yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to write and take control of your own destiny. We didn't have this kind of stuff like 20 years ago. It was difficult. And I feel like now, with every type of technology out there, how could you not write your own stuff?
Mhm.
How could you not? I mean, it's just there. I mean, if this was like 2000 where I started acting, it's like, how do I even put it out there? Now it's just, you could write something and it's all proof of concept. It's the more you do it, the better you get.
Yep.
And so I just don't see why you wouldn't.
Mhm.
There's my answer.
Yeah.
I think on that note, like, study and learn how to do it well. If you're going to write something in practice, and treat it just as seriously as you treat acting. And don't give up. And like, yeah, there's certainly economic factors and obstacles that come in when people are trying to produce their own content, especially now when there's so much, the market is, because so many like professional production companies and everything are also producing and also producing proofs of concept, is that do what you can and produce the best script that you can. If you can't take it all the way through production, and then partner up with people, find people that want to make what you've created. And if you created something good, you'll find each other, and then you'll have more people to work with as well, which is good, and more people's input and more that can be done with the story. We have to, if we don't all have the means, then we all have to come together until we do. If that makes sense.
No, it does. And I think the idea of finding other people to collaborate with is a lifelong journey to be able to. It's not finding your life partner in writing or creating. It's just being able to say, hey, Elaine, do you want to work on this? I have, or Amanda, do you want to work on this? Is to be able to be a good teammate. And because of the it's stereotypical, I will admit it, the familial ties, the reliance on our foundations of our families and our family units helps in that regard. It helps in those collaborative spirits. It helps in those notions of being able to reach out and say, hey, Tita, can you help me with this? Or, Kuya, why don't we, work on that dance piece? Or it's that idea of putting those threads out in knowing that we're all part of this wonderful, huge creative family. And there is something, it's not academic of me to say, but there is something in Phil-Am culture, more so than East Asian culture, in putting out, calls for, hey, let's do something together. And it's just been the type of experience that I had with other Filipino, American actors and actresses, artists. We're all artists.
So with the conversation about self-producing work and stuff like that, so when you produce your work, you have to promote it. I mean, these days you can because you have social media. Back in the day when I first started, like you especially when you have an agent or a manager or whatever, or PR person, They take care of the publicity. You just focus on the acting. These days, it's another part of your job. So the three of you, how much time do you devote in self-promoting yourself on social media? Or is that not comfortable to do?
I've got to say, I always feel a little bit uncomfortable self-promoting on social media. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just who I am. I try because I know that we're expected to, and that's the thing. Now productions are expecting us to do this labor of promotion on our own platforms and have it constantly going, and they're checking. I don't know about you guys. Do you ever feel like if I post, oh hey, I'm working on this thing, I'm working on this thing, I'm working on this thing, I'm like, I know some of my friends aren't working. So I feel,
Yeah.
it always feels
Yeah.
like I'm like, I just picture my friend who maybe hasn't worked in a while coming across my post, and that's what comes in my head, and I'm like, I don't want to put that out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But still we're expected to do it, so it's very strange.
Yeah.
It is. It's an interesting balance that we all have to do with regards to that, because in some ways you go, am I experiencing survivor's guilt in some way, where you're like, okay, I'm here, but there's a bunch of other people who may have not be experiencing this same sort of victory in some way or success. Yeah, that's a very common thing for me too. It's a struggle where you're like, should I be posting this stuff, or is it okay for me to post this stuff? Do I come off like I'm humble bragging about something, or what, but it's part of this industry now, which is self-promotion. It's like I mentioned earlier, the technology is there to do it, good or bad, good and bad.
Good and bad.
Yeah, it's everything. So, but yeah, we're starting to do promotion for Helstrom now, and one of the things is like, hey, can you promote this? Can you push this? Can you add this? Very much like I'm sure what Amanda's experiencing. And it's, part of you is like, is this the right time to promote considering what's happening in the world, or what do we do? But yeah, I think it's a very fine line. And I think there's people who could do it very well and do it very graciously. And there's some people who don't do it very well, and it comes off like, I don't want to follow this person anymore. This is a little too aggressive. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
Okay, next question. Let's see. A question for everyone. This is from Paul Mirador. He asks, because of social distancing, what kind of changes can the public expect from the film industry?
It's going to be whack-a-doodle. All three of us know what it's like to be on a set. All three of us know what it's like, how close we all get, and the beauty and the amazingness and the imagination of all the set builders to create a beautiful front. But then you just look on the other side and there's cups and wires and construction dust, and oh my God, it's, for an episode to be shot, I imagine it's going to double, because we cannot, we don't know. Everything has to be sanitized and re-sanitized after every take. Every set, just trying to imagine how everything has to be cleaned is monumental. I can't wrap it around my head, but they're starting. They're starting, I think at the end of July, mid-July.
We're back end of July.
Yeah.
I can speak to this as a producer and a writer, but knowing that our shoots are in Canada.
Yes.
So from the producer's end, I know we're doing bubbles, which I think you might be doing in LA as well. So there's, a red bubble, an orange bubble, and people in the bubbles only come in contact with each other. So hair and makeup actors will come in contact with each other, but everybody else has to social distance from them. The camera department is in a bubble, but everybody has to, outside their bubble, has to social distance. People are not to go back. The only people who are going back and forth between different bubbles are going to be the actors, because they have to be in base camp and then they have to be back on the set. From a writing perspective, writing on a show that's shooting in the fall, no crowd scenes, no scenes where it's, lots of people hugging or dancing, anywhere that they can. And I mean, working on a lower budget show, I already do this a lot, but anything that can make fewer people becomes fewer people. If you can just have one guy do it, you're gonna have one guy do it. No indoor sports scenes, nothing where people will come into contact. So it's interesting because it's gonna be subtle, but anything that's been being written in the time of COVID, in anticipating COVID, the stories are going to reflect that. And hopefully, and what's interesting too is productions are having to decide, does COVID exist in our universe or not?
Right. Right. Does COVID exist in our universe? Yep. That's the big question for a lot of them.
It's a new normal. That's basically what I think is happening, right? Yeah, I've got a lot of friends that are going back to work August 1st, and I've asked them the same question, like, how is this going to work? Yeah, I've got tons of friends that work on the crew side and cast side, and at least on the crew side, they're like, this is going to be a nightmare in terms of all the protocol that they have to adhere to, and which is great.
Who's going to monitor it?
That's exactly right.
We love our camera crews. We love our gaffers. We love, and then, what? The selfish, what's happening? What's going to happen to Crafty?
Yeah. No Crafty.
It'll be packaged or something like that. I've heard a rumor. Oh, go ahead.
So only half of the people are going to be broken in the lunchroom, and then the other half has to wait outside or somewhere else. And then they're going to flip it. So for the second half of lunch, then the second group of people.
It's a new normal. Hey,
this is
everyone's going to be packaged lunch. It's going to be like Lunchables. Here's your Lunchable. That's what we're doing.
Style too. So what are we going to do?
Man.
They're probably not COVID friendly. I feel like a craft buffet table is probably.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's true.
There are some productions I've heard that I think it's a budgetary thing, but they're like looking for production managers, which is great and all, but really the production manager is going to be the one who's going to be handling all the COVID stuff, rather than having a COVID or a medical person to be there. Like, like when SAG reps are on set, make sure you have, you follow the rules, rather than get a COVID nurse, medical person to be there, or if it can fit in their budget. I don't know how that, they will hire a production manager to take care of the COVID stuff. And that's one thing. And they will only train them, God knows what they'll train them with. I don't know if it's everything or not.
Right.
But then, when you say double Tamlyn, I'm also thinking, and as a producer, I'm also thinking longer hours and a higher budget, because you have to pay, it's insurance.
Of course. But longer hours doesn't make any sense, because again, we have to, it's the sanitization and the cleaning of the sets and every single prop and door.
There's definitely an exponential ripple here with regards to budget and everything else. And then I just realized too that we don't shoot a lot of stuff in LA. So in terms of casting, I mean, I haven't read anything yet in terms of protocol, but I would imagine that folks from Vancouver, for example, I know that a lot of the casting people cast a lot of American actors. So this is it's going to be a boon for a lot of the local actors in Vancouver and Toronto, I would imagine, and Atlanta too, where as a producer, I would imagine that it would be so costly to fly somebody from LA and then have that person quarantine or get tested and having, that's an extra amount of time that they're going to be sitting around.
Yep.
So, and how is that going to affect for the release? I'm sorry, Amanda, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just building on, adding into what you were saying. Our union is saying that an American actor has to be quarantined for 14 days.
Correct.
That's, I mean, it's going to be, right. And I think that's going to be something that's going to very impact the whole scheduling, everything. What's the release date going to be like? I mean, from what I understand, pilot season from this past year completely obliterated what programming is going to be like. Yeah, it's going to be a strange new world, but we'll see.
Let's see, there's some new questions coming up. Let's see. This is from Angie Quimden. She says, in a lot of circles I work with where Filipinos were categorized as ethnically ambiguous, when going for roles, what do each of you look for? Or maybe what, oh, well, yeah, go with that. I don't know what she means. What going for roles, what do each of you look for?
I don't know if I understand the question.
I know.
Yeah. Can you repeat that? So it's
in a lot of circles I worked with, where Filipinos were categorized as ethnically ambiguous. When going, when going for roles, what do each of you look for?
A good story, a good character, a good team of creatives. It's pretty simple. I don't understand what it has to do with the Filipinos being ethnically ambiguous. That's what I'm trying to wrap up.
That's something that's put on us. Like, just because people don't know what Filipinos are doesn't mean we're ambiguous.
Yeah. It's like, no.
Don't let anyone tell you
that. This is from Catherine Barocasio. This is for everyone. How did you support your passion when you started? Did you have a side gig, a huge inheritance you can live on, or did odd jobs?
Jobs.
I worked as an account executive for, I was fancy. It's a fancy title. I was an account executive for Condé Nast through my 20s.
Wow.
I was in publishing, which was very educational. I learned a lot about marketing and advertising, which created this knowledge in which when I talk to a person who's a publicist or PR, I go, I get it. I know what you're doing. And then my wife and I started a production company. So we've been running this production company for 10 years now, and very fortunate to have had, using that as a foundation for our income for a lot of the lean years as an actor. But yeah, I've been very lucky in that regard.
Anyone else?
Since Karate Kid, again, because I had not any dreams of becoming an actor, but Karate Kid was a kind of a good thing to have launched from. So I didn't ever I've always been able to consistently work. So I don't have the kinds of stories that most of my friends and who are actors as well have. But before I had a slew of jobs as like any other American kid. But in terms of the lean years, the one important thing is you take from the lessons from Amanda and what ALAIN has said during this whole panel is that you can't give up. You have to keep going on. You have to create. If it's inside you, you can't let it, you just can't, can it. You have to let it out. So hopefully that's what I can tell you here in this passage.
Yeah, I worked 3 jobs. So waitressing, working in a video game store, and then I worked for a promo company where you would do things like hand out flyers. sometimes we did really, really bizarre things. Like one time we promoted the Christmas tree at a mall. So they had us all wear like these backpacks filled with hot chocolate. And we'd like go around and like fill up people's hot chocolate. So this study said we need people who can sing to be Christmas carolers. That's what I did. That's how I ended up with this giant backpack. And here's the thing, they didn't give us any uniforms or outfits or anything, and no accompaniment. So they just had like groups of us stand in the mall and start singing.
Wow.
Legitimately, they would just like swerve to, because we just looked like and then they thought, you know what, we can cover more ground if we split you all up. So then it ended up being you were just standing there in the mall, and then you just be like, oh, Christmas tree. And just they didn't tell the mall security. The mall security escorted me out.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. No
I
way.
I work for your mall. Please come.
That has to be in one of your stories, right?
Right. So the more I've told these stories to like networks and stuff, and then they're like, wow, we want to work with you because you have all these interesting stories. So even when you feel like you're working the worst job ever, it comes back. Like it sucks, but when you're there, just remember it's material for later. You'll use it for something.
Hey, that's exactly right. It's like what that dean said at CSUN was like, have you lived life yet? Have you built you got to live.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's that's funny, man. Oh my gosh. That's great.
Next question. Another question from Joe. I didn't read this yet, but let's see. Question about
Joe's got questions. Let's bring it, Joe.
making it so hard for me. See, I didn't even pronounce his last name because I messed up the first time. Question about performing accents. I'm writing and acting in an MMA drama pilot with the main character as a Filipino from the Philippines. I'm a film actor and feel that I really don't have a believable Filipino accent. Have you ever had roles, Lane, that required, Amanda, that required you to put on a Filipino or other Asian accent that you felt you don't have? Should I write around it or try and hopefully not get roasted by my fellow Pinoys? Aha.
Is a dialect coach in the budget is one thing I would ask, because it's not fair that they're just like, you're Filipino, do an accent to begin with.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I would ask. I would definitely ask you if it's in the budget to hire somebody to help you out. I don't know, man. I have a dialect coach, and you know what I have learned is I just YouTube a bunch of people talking.
Yeah.
And then there are, from my experience with doing accent work, is that there are usually 3 or 4 very distinct things that that really showcases an accent. And if you nail those 4, usually you could trick the person thinking that you can do that accent really well. And it's the strangest thing, because really everything is pronounced very similarly, except for like how you use like a that instead of that, it's like dot or whatever it might be. But if the question is, how do you work around that if it's not available, if you can't do it? I think 2 things, right? It's does it serve the character? Does the accent serve a purpose for this character? And if the truth is it does, then you certainly have to. I think you definitely have to. You wouldn't be serving the story well if you didn't, or at least attempted to. And you know, going out there and risking everything creatively, I think that's what we're supposed to do, regardless of if it fails or not. I think if you have to put the effort into really servicing that character and servicing that story. And if it, got to do it, Joe. Figure it out.
Some Filipinos they have like very slight accents too. Like my mom, people are surprised she wasn't born here, but she didn't move here till her 20s.
Right.
Right. So that's the other thing, is like, even if they're from the Philippines, they might not necessarily have a strong accent.
Oh, 1000%. My mom, okay, when I was growing up, I would have friends come over and they were Filipino, and they would go, "Why does your mom sound that way?" And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, she doesn't sound like a typical Filipino mom. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, she sounds like she's got a bit of a Jamaican accent. I'm like, there's no way. And so I recorded her, and I recorded her accent, and I recorded my friend's mom's accent. I'm like, oh shit, they're totally different. Like, why? Why does my mom have this accent? Well, my mom's half Chinese, half Filipino. So there's this Chinese Filipino accent that comes out that isn't quite Filipino. So it's a little bit of a mismatch. And she's here now, which creates a little bit more of a layering. So you're absolutely right. Like there is, you know, so many variations of said Filipino accent or any accent work.
I think like pick one person. Like when you said watch YouTube videos, maybe pick just one person because everybody has a different accent.
Yes.
And then if you start following with different people's accents, then your accent might not be consistent.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Joe,
that's exactly right.
Exactly. And for Joe, he should just find an accent that serves him well, you know, for the job that he's looking for. It's all what you're comfortable with, but it has to it has to be founded upon the insistence about of whether or not that accent is warranted for that character in that story. So that's where we start. That's where we begin. I mean, and in the Philippines, if you're an MMA fighter, do you need a Filipino accent that's strong or heavy? I don't know. It goes. The Philippines is a huge archipelago of people who. There's not the Filipino accent. There's
right.
So.
I got a question from Paul Mirador has a second question. This is for you, Tamlyn. Mm-hmm. Is Commodore O from Picard coming back?
I cannot tell you.
Oh.
Okay.
That's a great show. Oh my God. It's one of my favorite shows right now.
This is from Catherine Bacasio, another question. This is for all of you, have you ever had a role that resonates too much? You felt it's real and started living it? Almost like method. But
I think in every role you bring part of yourself to it. Maybe that's reversing the question. I don't know about you guys, that you always bring your own experience and
I think what's interesting about her question is that you start living it, so that means it's after the fact. And I go, right? So because
research, maybe like if you're like living, like if I'm doing something on a specific time period or something, I might try to find more literature and watch other movies from that and understand the mindset of someone and try to put myself in it, but not any more than you would when normally researching a character, right?
Correct. Yeah, I agree.
No, Elaine, are you method?
I am very method. I yes, I agree with what you said. I think there's certainly different approaches to character building and character creation. Mm-hmm. You know, I think for me personally, understanding the physicality of a character affects me more than the mental aspect of it. And I think what I mean by that, I think for me, my approach has always been, what's the physical movement of this person? How do they sound? How do they move through the world? I think that, if anything, really affects me, because I just remember moving from, again, this is just recent history, but moving from Paper Tigers and then going into Helstrom within a week span really made me realize, oh, there is a massive amount of work and massive amount of difference between these two characters, and you can feel it in your body. Mm-hmm. So I think, I'm not method in any way, but it's certainly, there is lingering feelings of what that is. I think, as actors, there are emotional moments, and even though these are imaginary circumstances, our body doesn't know the difference. Whatever stress comes in our way, whatever, because we are I don't know how the school of training that you guys have, but at least for me, that these things truly affect me in that moment. For me to have an honest reaction to it, you allow yourself to be vulnerable in that regard, even though it's fake, even though it's, you know, an imaginary circumstance. So I think the mental aspect of it, the psychological aspect, and the physical aspect of it, it's still, you still absorb it. So I think in some ways it's there. I'm sure it lingers a little bit, but I mean, you know, eventually you let it go, I think. So yeah, there you go. That's my answer.
Let's see. Last question. Oh, there's really a lot of questions about Joy Luck Club here. Yes.
Look what you started.
Okay, so anybody else have any questions? Please go ahead and post. We have 20 more minutes, so go ahead and.
I have a question. I have a question for the panel. What are you looking forward to most with the current trajectory of Asian Americans and Filipino Americans specifically? What are you looking most forward to? Like, is it more content that's being created? Are we, I mean, yeah, I don't, what are you guys looking forward to?
Nice to have, I mean, I don't know if we'll get there anytime soon, but it'd be nice to have the same amount of opportunity that our white peers do.
Oh,
Like, can you imagine what that would be like to have even be considered for some of these roles where?
Yeah.
How shocking it is to see a breakdown where the character you're going for is actually a character. Is actually a
yeah.
I would even go as far to say, because you know, there's so much of a spirit of change and forward progress right now. I would be even radical enough to say that in my perfect world, that for the next year, that every single Hollywood film, TV project be cast with only BIPOCs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm sick of seeing the breakdowns where it says lead, you know, lead, Karen, haha, no, I'm just kidding. You know, lead, you know, her name, lead, Karen, 35 to 45, da 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 da. And then, you know, second is Tracy, black, 50 to 60, motherly, nurturing. And it's like, no, I want to, why isn't a black woman as the lead? That's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see this whole system be turned upside down. And I for right now, how I feel, you know, and because this is a personal discussion in a panel, it's just like, why not just wipe the slate clean and say, we're going to be committed to casting BIPOCs for our whole season, you know, for this new series, and let's see how much real change that can, and how much change and effect that will cause the writers in the room, the producers, the advertisers, because they're constantly saying in each room, it's like, well, I don't know how to write that way. Well, I don't know how to direct her. I don't know how to light her because of her skin tone. I don't know how to market her. I don't know how to publicize these kinds of stories because, you know, should I look towards the Asian American community? The conversations that all of us have heard, not only on this panel, but in our circles, is so tiring. So I agree with you, Amanda. It's like, you know, when you hear about opportunity, it's like, I said that when I was your age, you know, in 1986, it's like when I was seeing, you know, it's like, what is this? It's like, no, well then let's just flip it. Let's see people commit to the idea that these shows really reflect a committed change.
with our show, and this is where it really matters who's behind the camera and who's in the writing room that has a say. And I'll unapologetically say it, unless the role has to be white, we go BIPOC first. And I think the thing is, so two-thirds of us are people of color. And when we're going through the casting tapes, we're picking people that reflect the world that we see, not the world that people in often very white exclusive bubbles see, where they might have one or two tokens. And we're looking at the act, because we're people of color, we're looking at these actors of color as actors, not as, could he play the token black friend? Does he fit into my stereotypical view of his or her race? And I feel like when you have, first of all, when you have more women making the decisions, the variety of women that you see in ages and body types, in all kinds of things increases. And so why not extend that when we have BIPOC people making the decisions and making the casting decisions? That's when you get casts where there's organically more diversity, not tokenism.
Yeah, exactly. Bravo.
So we're all gonna become producers. That's what we gotta do.
Bravo, bravo. It's like, you just kind of blew my mind there when you're saying, unless the character has to be white, they're going to be BIPOCs. And thank you for that. That's.
Why not? And maybe it's just, like Toronto's one of the most diverse cities in the world, but so's LA.
Yeah. Hey, hello. Yeah. I can feel those words, what you said, knowing that you're in that position. It's totally, it's shifted. It's shifted my body even. I just feel chills and goosebumps. It's like, to be able to be a woman of color, to be able to say that is like, you're really doing the work. And yeah, it's amazing.
Thanks.
Okay, next question. New question. I'm sorry, I had to mute myself. I had a lawnmower going by. What genres, interests excite you? Played or have not played yet?
Woo! There's a lot. I think for me, what type of genre really interests me is sci-fi. I'm a huge fan of very dark, very strange worlds. I think the stranger the world and the bigger the world is, I think it's something that I would love to play in. Like anything that, a great example of a show that I love is like, Black Mirror, where it's like, it's this sort of weird alternate world of our world. And I feel like that those are interesting, worlds to play in. Anything that Cary Fukunaga comes up with, it's like, what is this? Like, or even Spike Jonze, where it's like, okay, that's interesting. Her was an amazing sort of breakdown of technology and human interaction. I love anything like that. That's, if I could be in that world or play in that type of genre, I would be in heaven. I really would. So yeah, that's something I would be interested in.
Would you be human or alien?
Whatever the character calls for, whatever it yeah.
What would be your preference? What would be your, yeah?
Are you suggesting something here for Picard? I'm just I'm free at the moment. No, I would, you know what, for the purpose of this panel, I would love to be seen, to be able to see this, because we've been in positions where we have not been seen. So it'd be great to see someone like me in that world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
For what was the question? I'm sorry, I forgot what. Oh, what genre? What genre? For any of us, I think it would be anything that's just interesting. But I think what's more important, and I'm going to piggyback on what Elaine and Amanda had said, that is to have us seen, to see people of color, you know, faces to be seen in just stories that are super interesting. Think of these the iconic television shows or series that, you know, we see on television and just say, wow, why do they all have to be white? Why do they all have to be white? It's like, why? There's no, unless, you know, they happen to be in you know, period pieces, but that's a period.
In Britain, they're now doing colorblind casting in period pieces as well.
This is what's been, because over the last 10 years, it's like, why is there's this going back to, for American television series, to period pieces? And is it because they can justify the presence of more white people? I always wondered why it was like Mad Men was so popular. It's because it's the 1960s, it's in New York City, so it's going to be a universe of white men. Other period pieces that come to mind were like Sons of Anarchy. It's like, but then a friend of mine, Asian American, Ken, was right? Was Ken on Sons of Anarchy? Anyway, never mind. But I go, was that a justification for just seeing, you know, white people on that show, on those shows? So I'm just curious in seeing, you know, shows like that are generically funny and relate to people, like what, Friends, and seeing just a whole cast of BIPOCs. It's like, for how many years did that show run, and how much of an impact did it lay upon not only American audience, North American audiences, but audiences around the world? It's like, let's try to change this picture so it reflects more of what our realities are.
All right, Amanda, you have to create the genre for us. Let's do it. Let's keep pushing. We want to be on your show. We want to do it. Let's make it happen.
Wouldn't it be amazing if they had a fantasy sci-fi show based on Philippine folklore? That we have some of the coolest folklore.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. I just saw someone post this photo, and I posted it on my Instagram, of this giant bat, and it's like, it's called I can't pronounce it. It's Mananagal or something like that. But I saw it. I'm like, what's that?
Is it the one that makes you get lost in the woods and then you have to put your clothes on backwards, or?
I maybe, I don't know, but I don't know. But I saw it. I'm like, there's so much richness in this.
Yeah.
In this thing. Yeah. So let's do it. I'm free July and August and September. I could work locally, Amanda. I'll quarantine myself. I'm good. I got friends out there. We can make it work.
I had a question.
4 years or so to get funding. 4 to 10 years to get funding, and
hey, that's fine. I'll still be here.
But is it true that the Canadian government, if it's going to be, that the Canadian government halves the budget of Canadian produced shows? Am I hearing? Partially, right?
So basically, anybody who broadcasts in Canada, and we're just finally getting Netflix to pay in, pays into a pot called the Canadian Media Fund. And then productions can apply for access to the Canadian Media Fund, so that you can get your production paid out of that, and from grants as well. Weirdly enough, and here's where it's lacking, where the grant system is lacking, our show, which is run entirely by women, 2/3 by people of color, is not eligible for any of the grants, because a lot of the grants are based on speaking a different language. So like a show where they speak Mandarin or Tagalog, most of the time we'll get funding. There's like all kinds of grants, but this is just a blind spot where there is nothing. But we are lucky here in Canada in that we do have access to the CMF. And so there is some government oversight. That being said, there's always like politics and stuff, and some networks are preferred over others, and that always comes into play, I guess, in this industry in general. But yeah, our government does help us with funding.
Yeah, that's cool.
Fantastic, man.
Canada!
That's fantastic.
And we're finally getting Netflix to pay in. Yay!
Yay!
So thank you, Landis Stokes, for that question. Or actually, this question about genre interest. Let me skip the other one. Let's see. Oh, another question from Joe. Tell us about your dreams. What movies or really stories starring you would you like to see happen someday? And then there's also before you. Okay, I'll say that later. Go ahead.
Well, okay. So what movies, stories starring us would you like to see happen someday? I think for me, I'm thirsty for more Asian American stories, very specifically localized stories. And what I mean by that is that I remember listening to a podcast with I think it was Eddie Huang, and he was saying something about Crazy Rich Asians. He was saying, I think it was him. So if I'm wrong, please don't kill me. But he said something interesting about Crazy Rich Asians. He said, they don't need my support. That's going to be successful regardless. And what he said was that, but he wants to give license to other Asian American creators to say that it's okay not to like that story because it might not be your story. That there are other stories, and there are other stories of people who grew up in New York or Chicago or Toronto, like what Amanda's doing, that I would like to see more of that. So at least for me, I remember when the casting came out for example, Fast and Furious, when that came out and was based in LA, it was so strange to me that they didn't have anyone or not a big contingency of Asian Americans in it. Because a huge group of the people who raced in LA were Asian. And I just thought that was interesting. So I remember just kicking something around with my manager. I said, wouldn't it be great to do a prequel of Fast and Furious, where we see a different world where these characters came from? Because it's LA based and it's going to be in the 90s. And that's kind of where I grew up, in that sort of world where there's, speaking of what's happening now, there's this really interesting communal story between the Korean, like the Asian American, more specifically Korean Americans with the Black community, and how that interaction happens. Like there's so much stories. There's so many stories of an Asian American experience that has not really been told. And I think in some ways I am trying to do that too. I'm failing, but and it's okay to fail. But to answer that question, I would love to see that kind of story be told, and I'm sure it will be soon.
Mhm.
Oh,
You have to mute
Hey.
your.
I got
yeah,
it.
we're just
Senility just entered. So the rest of the stuff he said, he just wanted to say, and I think he speaks for every one of us here in this chat and this whole event. Also, before you go, thank you to Tamlyn, Elaine, and Amanda for contributing to Filipino American talent being recognized. Just to see one single Filipino in a show or movie can change how a person thinks and identifies as they develop. Your work and talent is recognized by all Filipinos and Asian actors. Thank you for raising us up. What else he wanted to say? And I think that's pretty much the consensus everywhere on this Q&A thingy. I don't have any more questions, so I'm gonna leave the last 5 minutes to the three of you. Anything you want to promote? Anything you want to say? Anything, when I say promote, I mean social media and any projects you have coming up. Your floor.
Well, on social media, I think follow Amanda. I mean, I'm looking on, for like second gen. I go, rats, I can't get it. But, and then I just friended Elaine on Insta. So it's like, oh, I got it on social media. So now I have to look on it. But I think for any of the, the viewers out there is like, if you're present on these social media, is follow other Fil-Am artists. you know, that's the easiest way to get into the community before getting the chance to know these people, and you know, and to know these people's works. And it's, our community is huge. I mean, I think between the three of us, we can list off as like Fran De Leon, you have mentioned Tess Paras, Rodney Toe, Giovanni Ortega, you mentioned Reggie Lee, it's like Alison De La Cruz, Melody Boutiu. It's like all these people that it's like, they're just like, people should know these talented, you know, film artists. It's like, and if we just can amplify them on social media, I think I would like to use my portion of this 5 minutes is to be fans of them on social media, follow them, so we can amplify each other and get our stories told. That Amanda's going to write.
We're all coming to Toronto. Let's do it. We're gonna make this happen.
Yeah.
You say our social media handles then?
My social medias are on Twitter and Insta is the Tamlyn Tomita.
I just followed you back.
Okay.
We're friends now. We're friends officially now.
We're friends. We're friends. Yeah.
I'm at Amanda Joy on both Instagram and Twitter. Amanda Joy.
Amanda.
Not Amanda Joy.
Wait,
like,
not Amanda Joy?
Yeah. Because they were like, Amanda Joy is taken. You cannot use that. So it was
that's
like,
hilarious. I love that.
Amanda Joy.
Oh my God, that's so good. That's so good.
Wow. Wow. Okay. And I think it's, yeah, there's something weird about, yeah, okay, yeah. But there we go.
And
Not,
Ellen, what's yours?
It's just my name, ALAIN UY. That's it. And on Twitter, it's at the ALAIN UY because there's another person that took. I should have done not ALAIN UY.
Do you know
Twitter.
Charles? Do you know Charles?
Charles Uy?
Yeah.
I do.
He's not related
USC?
to you.
USC. The guy, Charles Uy.
Filmmaker.
Person went to USC. Yes.
Who's married to? Who's married
Did he
to?
go to USC? No. Did he get? I just know him.
What does your Charles do?
He's in film. He's in film.
He's in yeah. Does he have a son?
He does.
Okay.
It might be the same. Can't imagine there's another Charles Uy somewhere.
Shout out to Charles and Joan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey.
Amanda, did you want to say something?
Yeah, well, we got season 3 of Second Gen will be coming out. And it's, again, the episode I've been fighting for is now in this season where my family comes from the Philippines and we have a Filipino party episode. There's karaoke. Don't miss it.
Magic Mike.
It was actually so amazing, guys. I don't know if you've ever been on a set where the cast for the day was like 90% Filipino, but it's amazing. That's a beautiful thing, man.
Yeah.
That's something to strive for. That's cool.
Yeah.
It was like being at a Filipino party. Everyone was a
That's great.
What about you?
What do I have to promote? I am doing the Comic-Con Marvel panel, Hulu panel for Helstrom. That's coming up in July. I don't know the specific dates yet, but I know it's free, so anyone can join in.
I think they were the same dates as the original Comic-Con because I read the dates too.
They do. I just don't know when our panel is gonna reside. Yeah. So follow me on my social at ALAIN UY, ALAIN UY for Instagram and for Twitter at the ALAIN UY. Other than that, they just announced Helstrom is going to launch in October. I don't know the specific date yet. And then Paper Tigers, that's coming out soon-ish. So you'll see me try to do some martial arts. Terrible. That's it.
Okay.
Oh, and this panel, watch us at the, if you rebroadcast this panel.
Yeah. This panel will be, okay, well, I'll have to do the social media on this. So 3 minutes left. First off, you can follow me if you want. I don't mind. I'm on Twitter at Edwin _ at Edwin _ A _ Santos. And then it's the same thing, but with dots in between on Instagram. So it's Edwin.A.Santos. Long handle. You can follow the Filipino American Chamber of Commerce of Hollywood, who is presenting this panel on Zoom. They are on, it's under FACC Hollywood on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So there you go. And then the Filipino Hollywood Actors Panel just got social media this year because they didn't do it last. For the fifth anniversary of the Actors Panel, I opened up social media for it. So it's currently on Facebook as Filipino Hollywood Actors Panel, on Twitter as Actors Panel, and that's it for now. I'm working on Instagram and YouTube for that. This panel in itself, this one that we just almost done, will be on the Chamber of Hollywood YouTube channel, and then maybe another channel. I'll announce that later on. I haven't decided yet. I might post it on the Facebook if that's possible. Don't know yet. We'll see. And then, yeah, I think that's it. Okay, so I have only a minute left. I just want to thank everyone who joined us at this afternoon for 2 hours. Thank you for all your questions. Thank you for being patient with me, being so new at this Zooming, hosting event. So I learned my lessons and a lot of notes on my texts that I received, and I will implement that for next year. And I will have a co-partner late next year too. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Elaine, Amanda, Tamlyn, for being here today.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
10th anniversary for this panel will be, and again, I have asked this for the other panels in the past, but we will have a 10th anniversary where I will invite everyone, I mean everyone, to hopefully in a live theater, hopefully, please, please, please. And then we can all get together and just reminisce the last 10 years and see how much, I don't know, maybe see how much it has changed for all of us, or it has finally changed for all of us. We shall see in about 4 years from now. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank
Bye,
you
everyone.
very much.
Have a nice day. Have a good weekend.
Bye. It was so fun.
Bye, everyone.
Elaine and Edwin. Thank you.
I know. Thank you, guys.
You.
Bye.
Bye.